we are going to learn how to do some conversions. And when we do conversions, what we're going to do is when we have something that looks like this, so this is what we call radical form right here because there is a radical sign. We're going to take this and we're going to turn it into something that looks like this, like exponential form. Or we might radical form. I think that's the one we do first. So it says if you have some base to a power, okay, I'm going to take that base. It's going to go under the radical, okay? And then we'll take the root of it. So we're going to go from exponential to radical. This, however, you guys are always used to seeing this as a whole number, right? You're used to seeing like something to the fifth power. Well, today it's not going to be. So I'm going to show you guys how to take that fraction and figure out, you know, which part of the fraction becomes the root and which part becomes the exponent on the outside. Okay, so go ahead and turn the page. This is the one I was talking about right here. So see how it's got a base to a power. We're going to convert that to radical form. And by doing so, just look where everything lands. The base radical, right? So whatever number or letter is here, we're going to put it under a radical. The numerator of our fraction becomes the exponent, and the denominator becomes the root. Oops. Exponent. So we've got the numerator. If this were like a 5, that would be the fifth power out here. And if this were a 2, we'd have just shuffling numbers and letters around. That's all we're doing. We're just putting them in a new place. Okay, so right now we have a base of 6. Where would that base go? Goes under the radical. Under the radical. Now, for the fraction, this fraction right here, 3/4. The top number is always going to be our exponent. The bottom number is always going to be the root. So when you do your exponent, you should and show the exponent on the outside. And when you do your root has to be equal. You cannot put it out front. If you put it out front, it's going to look like you're multiplying by 4, and that's not what we're doing. The root has to be down inside that little dip right there. And then this is done. That's all we're doing. Shuffling it around, going from okay, so for number 2, what goes inside the radical? The 3x. What number is on the outside? Do we ever have to show an exponent of 1? We don't have to, can we? Yeah. So if it makes you feel better by putting the 1 there, put it there, but you don't have to. And then if my root is a 5, you got to just make sure you put it in right there with root. Number 3, under the radical is what? X to the third. On the outside is the 7, and the root goes on the inside. Yep. one, the 2x is what would go under the radical. You put parentheses around it. The top number is your exponent, so that will always go inside, and it should be located within that little dip of your radical. Now, like I said, we're going to do both. So we just took exponential form and turned it into radical form. And now we're going to go the opposite direction. Now they're going to give us radical form. So now you just have to remember, whatever is under the radical, that just becomes our base. And I always put parentheses around my base. And then the number on the outside is your numerator. So the number on the outside is the numerator of is the denominator of the fraction. Okay, so for this first one, the 3x, since it's under the radical, that becomes our base. So you want to make sure you put that inside parentheses. Now write that fraction sideways, because if you try to write it up and down, you're going to look like you're putting 3x times 5/3 instead of 5/3 being an exponent. So literally no computation with this. It is just moving things around. You don't need a calculator at all. Okay, now for this one, notice, I need you guys to look up. Notice that there is no exponent out here, and there is no number right there. Those numbers exist. You just have to know what they are. If you don't see an exponent, what is it? It's a 1, and if you don't see a root, what's the root we always use? It's the square root, right? When we draw this symbol, isn't that the square root? So they don't show a 2 there, but you're supposed to know that's what it is. You're supposed to know that your root would be a 2. Well, you were right. Okay, so 2x would go inside parentheses since that's your base. And then as far as the exponent goes, the exponent, the 1, goes as your numerator, and your root, which is the 2, is your denominator. So 2x to the 1/2 power. And again, that 2x needs to be inside a set of parentheses. And then for this one, the x is the base. And then you have an exponent there, so you know that your numerator is going to be a 5. What's the denominator going to be? A 2. Because again, they didn't show you a root, so you're supposed to just know that the root is a square root. So it'd be 5/2. That stuff right there, super simple. There is nothing complicated about what we just did here. There's no computation. It is just taking one form and writing it as the other form. So literally, every number, every letter gets used. You just have to know where to put it. Okay, then you guys can turn the page. Because this is where we're going to start solving equations. So now for solving these equations, you will need to use calculators probably. Okay, if you look at example A, this says x plus 6 to the 1/3 power equals -2. If you have something raised to a power, I cannot get rid of this 6 and move it to this side until this power is gone. That's the only way. What could I multiply 1/3 by to get it to cancel? No, you're close. You're going to use a 1 and a 3, but it's not 1/3. Three over 1. When you have a fraction, if you multiply by its reciprocal, it cancels. It becomes a 1. Okay, so if I have a fraction like 1/3, this is all I have to do. Hope you're watching. I'm going to take the whole left side, I'm going to multiply, or I'm going to, sorry, not multiply, but I'm going to raise it to the 3rd power. So that way this 3rd power would multiply by the 1/3 power, and it would cancel out. But if I raise the left side to the 3rd power, what do I have to do on the right side? Raise it to the 3rd power. Yep. Whatever you do to one side of an equation, you have to do to the other. So now if you guys look up here, we just said this 3rd power cancels out the 1/3 power. So on the left side, don't we just have x plus 6? We just have that expression. Now on the right side, you guys need to figure out what -2 to the 3rd power is. Calculator does that for you. -8. Yeah, -8. You guys, you would just type it in just like this to your calculator. Put the -2 in parentheses, hit the caret button, then hit a 3. Give you -8. And then what's the only step left? Subtract the 6. So x equals, and then this total right here is -14. Then for letter B, if this is raised to the 1/4 power, what power would I raise it to cancel it out? The 4th power? Yep. And if I raise the left side to the 4th, I'm raising the right side to the 4th. So if you guys look up here, this 4th power cancels the 1/4 power. Those are gone. So on the left-hand side, we just have the 3x. And on the right-hand side, 1 to any power. If I multiply 1 by itself 1,000 times, what is it? 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Times another 1, still 1. Times another 1, still 1. Okay, and then how would I solve that? Divide by 3. Just divide by the 3, not the x. It's okay. Okay, so if you look up there, isn't my answer just 1/3? You got the fraction right there. So it's 1/3. I mean, obviously, if you had typed it into a calculator, it would be 0.3 repeating. But by now, you guys should know, like, we typically just leave our answers in fraction form. Okay, now A and B were the easier ones because, can you guys look up at the board, please? This expression with the power was like isolated. There wasn't a number in front of the parentheses. There wasn't a number behind it. So we were just ready to cancel out the power by multiplying or by raising it to its reciprocal, right? So down here, when I start looking at this, I cannot get rid of this power just yet because there's this -4 out front. Like, we still need to isolate the part of the equation that has the power attached before we can raise it to a different power. Okay, so how would I get rid of a -4 that is attached to parentheses? You would divide. And if I divide by -4 on the left, I'm dividing by -4 on the right, which we've done this type of problem before, is slightly different, but similar. So now I have 3x plus 1 to the 1/3 power equals 2. So then now, is this isolated? Yeah. So now can we go ahead and raise that to the 3rd power? And if I raise that one to the 3rd, I have to raise the 2 to the 3rd. Okay, so look, watch. This 1/3 is canceled out by the 3. They cancel each other. So you're left with 3x plus 1 equals, and then what's 2 to the 3rd power? 8. And then you guys could finish solving that one. That is a 2-step equation. How would you solve it? Subtract the 1 to get 7. And then we would divide by 3. So I would get x equals 7 over 3, 7/3, or 2.3 repeating. Okay, what number would I have to move first on letter D? In order to get this isolated, like we have to isolate this, we'd have to get rid of that plus 5. How do we get rid of a plus 5? Subtract 5. So I have 2x to the 1/4 power equals 5. Okay, then what do I do? What'd you say? Raise it to the 4th power. We're raising this side to the 4th power, which means we're raising this side to the 4th power. Okay, so this 4th power cancels out the 1/4 power, leaving us with just 2x on the left. Now you guys need to tell me what 5 to the 4th power is. And then divide by 2. $312.5. So you guys are going to get a practice page, and I need you to look up the first 4 problems are like these 4, where you are just going from exponential to radical. Okay? Then you're going to have 4 problems like these, where you're going from radical to exponential. So the first 8 problems, you don't need a calculator for. You are just rearranging. You're going from one form to the other. The only thing is at the very end, the last 4 problems are like these 4 equations. That's it. It's a pretty short assignment. It was a pretty short lesson. So that wraps up our first one. And I'm going to, just 2. And I'm going to give you guys your practice page here in just a second once I can get this mouse moving. Here we go.